This is Alien Earth Episode 4 in a nutshell. Ah yes, Alien Earth, FX's new, absolutely horrifying Alien franchise streaming series is back with another episode, as we continue to journey down the absolute insane rabbit hole of our main character Wendy and her strange relationship with the Xenomorph aliens. Hello everyone, I'm Finn. Welcome back to finnfilms. Join me today as once again we are discussing everything that happened in this week's episode of Alien Earth. What is honestly probably one of my favorite new series that have come out in 2025, a series that has completely taken me by surprise. So join me this week for Alien Earth Episode 4 in a nutshell. Last time on Alien Earth, Prodigy returned Joe and Wendy back to Neverland, along with the alien specimens. Meanwhile, Slightly is contacted by the cyborg Morrow, who begins to manipulate him in order to recover these alien specimens, specifically the Xenomorphs. The synth team then begins conducting experiments on the Xenomorph eggs. Wendy recovering, waking up as she begins hearing a strange sound. Following the sound, where we discover that she is hearing the Xenomorph babies. Meanwhile, Joe is undergoing surgery, as Prodigy replaces his lung, using his old lung in an experiment with the baby Xenomorph. Meanwhile, the sound growing louder in Wendy's ear, as she collapses on the lab floor, convulsing. Episode 4 opens with Wendy once again in recovery, the technicians having turned off her hearing trying to help her, as they discuss what to do. Boy Cavalier arrives along with Joe, who is worried about his sister. Again, we see this stark contrast in how these two characters treat Wendy, as well as the other Lost Boys. Joe obviously treating his sister like a human being. Meanwhile, Cavalier treats Wendy like an AI, a machine, and very much his property. This series raising the classical philosophical question of what makes a human a human. Wendy and the other Lost Boys being a kind of real-world experiment of the philosophical quandary of the brain swap problem, which is simply this: if your brain, memories, and consciousness are swapped to a new body, is this a new person, or is it you? They run some tests on Wendy as they discover that she is the only one that can hear the Xenomorph cries. Wendy wanting to be able to hear them, and to be able to communicate with them. Cavalier asking Wendy to try and speak their language to make their sounds, as she does have a supercomputer for a brain. As to our shock and even horror, Wendy begins mimicking the Xenomorph chitters.
What the hell is even that?
Cavalier is advised by his right-hand man to return the specimens to Utani, but he refuses, wanting to press onward. Also telling his right-hand man that Joe can stay here with Wendy, but he is working for them. Wendy shows Joe her bedroom as the two again try to bond in this somewhat awkward scene. Joe explaining that he is mad at Prodigy for lying to him about her death, and he wished that he could have seen her when she was in the hospital, but he was stuck in a war on the other side of the world. As we do see the two of them finally bonding together again over the movie Ice Age. Meanwhile, Slightly is having problems of his own, as he goes to a quiet spot on the island speaking with Morrow once again. Morrow continues to manipulate him, playing on the fact that he is still mentally a child, trying to frame the issue in terms of right and wrong, asking him is it morally wrong to steal from a thief, as he asks Slightly to steal one of the Xenomorph eggs and return it to him. Slightly is still mistrusting of Morrow, but Morrow tells him his full name, convincing Slightly to tell him his real birth name, which is Arush Singh. A decision that will come to haunt Slightly later on in this episode. Slightly returns back to his room where the synth Krish is waiting for him. Krish knowing that something is up with Slightly, posing him a moral question of his own. Would Slightly try to stop him if he did something to hurt someone else? Slightly is about to respond when Morrow's voice rings in his head, telling him to be careful, as it seems that Morrow can hear everything that Slightly can hear. Slightly responding to Krish saying that he would stand up for his friends. Of course, we can infer by this, but by friends, in this case, he is referring to Morrow. Back in the lab, we see Krish is beginning his experiments on the other alien specimens. As we get probably the most horrifying and fucked up scene of this episode, as we watch the creepy, terrifying eye alien creature rip out this sheep's eye, crawling inside of it and then taking over its body. As we see the eye creature has a high level of intelligence and problem-solving abilities, making it in many ways almost as threatening as the Xenomorphs, as imagine what damage this creature could do if it ended up taking over, I don't know, Boy Cavalier, or possibly even one of the Lost Boys, if it was even possible for this creature to take over a synth's body. But part of me wonders if it's possible from the way that this creature is looking at them, the fact that the creature attacked Nibs on the crash site, and the fact that these scenes very much seem to be foreshadowing this possibility. We then watch Dame and Arthur Sylvia go and have a private conversation, if there even is such a thing with all the cameras and monitoring here on Neverland. For context, Dame and Arthur are a couple, and the scientists overseeing the hybrid program of the Lost Boys. Arthur tries to relay his concerns about Cavalier's decisions to Dame, saying that what he is doing is not science. He isn't using the scientific method, and he isn't testing variables. He's just breaking the rules and taking unneeding risks. Arthur just wanting Dame to know that he is very much concerned about everything going on here, and that they need to think about what is going to happen if this whole program goes to hell. The two of them are then interrupted by Nibs, who tells them that she has good news, that she is pregnant.
I have good news. Such good news. I'm pregnant.
Obviously, the two scientists are alarmed by this, as it is not possible for Nibs to be pregnant because she is a synth. Dame taking Nibs to her office to speak with her. Dame attempts to try and explain to Nibs that there's no possible way that she can be pregnant, as their synthetic bodies are different, but Nibs refuses to listen to her. The girl seemingly convinced that she must be pregnant, as we know that the encounter on the crash site with the eye creature seems to have damaged her mentally in some way. Nibs growing angrier and angrier at Dame as Dame tries to push back. Nibs finally snapping, as in a flash she pounces on her, pinning her back down, as Dame tries to calm her down.
I said stop talking!
Dame being obviously increasingly panicked, as we have to remember that the Lost Boys' synthetic bodies make them incredibly strong and dangerous. You combine their physical strength with their childlike minds, and it is completely possible that any of the Lost Boys could hurt someone on accident. Dame manages to calm Nibs down, walking over and hitting a panic button as two guards come into the room. Dame having them escort Nibs back to her bedroom, telling them to contact their superiors and tell them they have a level 3 incident. Joe then goes and meets with Adam, Cavalier's second in command. Adam giving Joe an ultimatum. He can either work for them and report to them whenever they need him to. In exchange, he can stay and be around his sister. Or he can leave the island, never seeing his sister again, and then be seemingly charged for the rest of his life to pay off his new lung. Joe realizing he has no choice in the matter, and that Prodigy basically owns him at this point. Wendy then goes and meets Cavalier questioning her about the aliens, what she thinks about them, what she thinks they want, as well if she thinks that her brother should stay. This scene being even more revealing about Cavalier's obsession with Peter Pan and Neverland, as he compares Wendy's fight with the Xenomorphs to taking on the crocodile in Peter Pan. But it goes even deeper than that. Cavalier seemingly detests adulthood and authority, seeing Joe as a symbol of that authority, an older brother or a parent. Cavalier very much wanting to make an ideal Neverland world, where he as a young person can control everything and create all the rules and break them whenever he wants. In this world of Neverland, in this metaphor in comparison to the story of Peter Pan, Cavalier is very much the Peter Pan character. Of course, the irony of this being that Cavalier will not be young forever, and that this is possibly one of the motivations in his pursuit of the hybrid program, to one day transfer his own consciousness and memories into an AI synthetic body so that he can also be a child, a young person forever. As well, in this conversation, we see Cavalier trying to turn Wendy against Joe, the two eventually making a deal. Joe would be allowed to stay as long as Wendy helps Cavalier better understand the Xenomorphs. Back in the lab, we see Toodles working with Krish, Toodles wanting to take a new name, specifically Isaac after the scientist Isaac Newton. Isaac leaves, running into Slightly, who was going to the lab to try to steal the egg, slightly awkwardly trying to lie about what he was going to do, as he eventually leaves, going on a walk alone. Here he speaks with Morrow again, and he tells him that there's just no way that he could steal the egg, as it is revealed that Morrow is currently in the room with Slightly's mother. Morrow using the information about Slightly's real name, Arush Singh, to find his mother and then use her as leverage against him, as he continues to manipulate the boy. Meanwhile, we see Krish in the lab, as we continue to hear this conversation between Slightly and Morrow. It's seemingly being implied in this scene that Krish is listening in on this conversation between Slightly and Morrow, Slightly agreeing to help Morrow. Morrow giving him a new task. Instead of sneaking out an egg, he's going to sneak out a person. Specifically, he will sneak a person into the lab. The Xenomorph will then hatch and infect this person. Slightly will then sneak the infected person out of Neverland, giving him to Morrow. Slightly is now posed with a new moral question of which person should he use to complete this task. We switch scenes seeing the rest of the Lost Boys hanging out with Joe. Joe giving us a little history lore lesson about the world of Alien, that long ago the world was controlled by governments, but it ended up not working, and the world order fell. was eventually replaced by the 5 corporations: Prodigy, Yutani, Threshold, Dynamic, and Lint, who divided the world up amongst themselves. Slightly then joins the group, seeing Joe and being angered by this, the fact that he is here, as they all have family members they want to see, and it's not fair that Wendy gets to have Joe. Joe agreeing with them, saying that their families should be here. The Lost Boys all arguing with each other on what they should do and their relationships to their family. Wendy ultimately leaving, saying that she wants to go to the lab. We then see Slightly looking ominously at Joe. Joe later that evening looking at his surgery scar in his room. Slightly lurking outside, staring at him like a complete creeper. The connotations of this scene being that Slightly has chosen Joe to be the person to use to complete Morrow's mission, which is absolutely insane and incredibly fucked up, but this is also basically completely on brand for the Alien series. Meanwhile, Wendy is in the lab looking at Joe's lung in the container, as she begins chittering at it. Krish silently watching this interaction unbeknownst to Wendy in the background. Suddenly, though, the baby xenomorph bursts out from the lung, looking at Wendy. Wendy chittering at it as she manages to calm the creature down, slowly reaching out and petting it. It responding to Wendy almost like a mother, almost like its queen, as episode 4 of Alien Earth comes to an end. Wowie, what an episode. This series continues to be absolutely mind-bending, mind-breaking. It just feels like they're going so many different directions at once that it is kind of hard to predict exactly where they're going to go. I feel like one thing we can predict, though, is that we know that this is going to go horribly wrong. Namely because everything we know about the Alien franchise, lore so far, obviously this could change with this episode, is that there is not, common knowledge about xenomorphs appearing on Earth. Again, this series, Alien Earth, is taking place 2 years before the events of the very first movie series. So we don't exactly know, at least from my knowledge, any of the other Alien timeline stuff of alien xenomorphs coming to Earth. So I can only imagine that, this is going to go horribly wrong with the xenomorphs in Prodigy in Neverland, but ultimately this will probably get covered up, whether it's either the xenomorphs get recovered by Yutani, basically desperately wanting the xenomorphs to do research on them, to experiment on them, to make, new genetic, crazy bioweapons, something that we know about Yutani from all of the other Alien media, whether it be movies, books, what have you. And the way that the series is being angled right now, it does seem like something is going to go horribly wrong here at Prodigy, at Neverland, and with the hybrid program. Obviously, we have the manipulative relationship between Slightly and Morrow. Morrow manipulating our little boy Slightly, who I love this character so much, man. I feel so bad for him, but manipulating him into trying to steal an egg. Slightly's, childlike emotions being taken advantage of, as it seems like he has his sights on Joe, that Joe will be the target of his mission to ultimately have a xenomorph, go inside Joe, and then for Slightly to smuggle Joe out for Morrow to take Joe back to Yutani. Meanwhile, we have the absolute chaos and insanity going on with Nibs. Nibs' mind, her childlike mind, basically fracturing and breaking from the encounter with the creepiest alien monster on the spaceship. Nibs seemingly convinced that she is pregnant for some reason, responding with hostile, almost violent action to the scientists. And it's funny because I kind of was wondering when this was going to happen. This seemed like only a matter of time. I mean, think about it. You have a bunch of synthetic superhumans. Physically, they are superhumans with genetic gigabrain AI learning computers for brains. You take that and then you upload a child's memory, consciousness, and basically personality to this synthetic body. So you have an absolute superhuman robot that could crush a human being walking around with the mind of an 11, 12-year-old child. That just seems like an absolute catastrophe waiting to happen. I mean, imagine if any one of the Lost Boys turned on Prodigy Corporation, just how much violence could ensue. And then imagine if all of them turned on Prodigy Corporation, how much absolute insanity, chaos, violence, death would ensue, especially considering the fact that they have, Giga AI learning supercomputers as brains. They are only going to get smarter and more, they're only going to ask more questions. So as they grow older, in a sense, in their mind, as they learn more and decide to act for themselves, there's nothing really that could eventually stop them. And then finally, we have the mystery of our main character, Wendy, and her relationship with the Xenomorphs. The fact that seemingly Wendy has been chosen by the Xenomorphs. For some reason, she's the only one that can hear the Xenomorphs cry, the high frequency of their voices. So something is going on here. Something has made Wendy special, made Wendy unique, and I would really love to know what that explanation is going to be, why Wendy can seemingly communicate with the Xenomorphs. Is it possibly just the fact that they have super AI, computers in their brain, and that they can just learn this language, learn this communication skill over time, just from, osmosis, essentially how, Wendy was ultimately able to speak and use the Xenomorph language, like chitter, how she was able to just magic it out, in the words of Boy Cavalier. Part of me really wonders if Wendy will almost be able to command them while speaking to them, if they do view her as kind of the queen, if she could, command them, and that is ultimately how this is going to end, how Prodigy, I imagine, Neverland is going to blow up and all the Xenomorphs are potentially going to escape. Maybe. Then my mind goes to the scenario, what if slightly ends up making Joe a Xenomorph, Joe dying and a Xenomorph being born, and then Wendy, ultimately commanding this Xenomorph, as at the end of the day, this is her brother, even if it is a brand new creature, but Wendy seeing her brother within this creature, seemingly how, similar how, her brother saw her personality, her humanity, in, her new body. I don't know, I'm just kind of blindly speculating right now, but the show has definitely kind of leaned the plot in a number of certain ways that have pointed me in that direction, where it seems like this is kind of what they're teasing at, this is kind of what they're hinting. But again, this is just blatant speculation. Right now, there's a ton of questions and not many answers, but man, am I having fun watching this show and speculating at all of the, seemingly kind of plot threads that they are kind of these rabbit holes that they're starting to lead us down, all of these, theories and teasers that the show is very much giving us. This show has been a very pleasant surprise. When I first heard that they were making an Alien franchise, FX streaming series, I was excited, but I didn't think it would be this good. It is strange, it is very unique, it is a very avant-garde show at times, not only in the way that they tell the story, but in the way that the show is edited and produced. Many of the scenes, feeling, I don't know, very artsy, very avant-garde, almost ethereal at times. So especially these scenes where they do these, cross dissolves, these mini fades between all of these characters when things are happening at once. There's a lot of connotation that you have to absorb. They aren't just coming out and telling you what is exactly happening in the scenes. You have to be paying attention, whether to what is on camera, what they're trying to show you, or the series of scenes put together and what that means overall for the story. There's a lot of stuff that is just implied. They don't come out and tell you through dialogue, through characters. You just have to be locked in and paying attention to pick up all of these little hidden details, and I absolutely love it. As always, guys, with these videos, these are just my thoughts and opinions, so feel free to let me know yours in the comment section down below. What kind of crazy alien Earth theories do you have? Let me know in the comment section. If you did enjoy this video, guys, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, as that is the easiest way to support me, and it really does go a long way in putting this video into the algorithm. If you did enjoy this video, then why don't you check out some of my other content on screen now. And as always, I hope to see you in the next one. Until next time, guys, stay safe out there. Peace. Love. Auto.